week in October. So I wonder exactly what college football game that means in this area. But anyway, I'm Nick Hill, Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States, and joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and deciding to steal my flow with his background is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing it. I had to get this credit to the University of Tennessee Police Department. They posted this picture. I was flabbergasted. I was like, this was the perfect capture of last Saturday's Checker Nealon. Beautiful Checker Nealon. Sadly, I never went to a Checker Nealon game when I was in Knoxville. I definitely regret that. But I have
I've
to
been
put
to
on my.
one. That was 2017 Georgia where we lost 40.
Oh, oh, that one, I'll say.
Yeah, that's the one that killed Checker Nealon for like 4 years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so that was basically a doomsday. But thankfully, we now have a winning streak of two straight on Checker Nealon's. Last year, Florida, and this year, Texas A&M. Um, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. I do want to mention that we have two big games going on tonight. We've got Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Chargers. It's 7-7 late second quarter. Kind of surprising, I think. It's a little bit lower scoring than I would have thought. We also have game one of the NLCS, Arizona at Philadelphia. The Phillies lead 4-0 in the bottom of the fifth inning. And what's crazy is, the ALCS is already through two games. They played earlier this afternoon, which, by the way, I just want to say, why in the world are we playing the League Championship Series at 4 p.m. on a weekday? Like, what is the MLB doing? At all. But, that's through two. And surprisingly, so far, the Rangers are up 2-0 on the Astros. But, obviously, if we're going to start with the MLB, then we got to start with the great disappointment that was my Atlanta Braves. You called it, Gus. You said that it would be over in Game 4, and I had hope. And the Braves certainly had numerous chances to win that game last, I believe it was, Thursday? But they couldn't get it done. And honestly, I could take the sensible route and blame, our pitching situation, lack of pitching depth, the pitching injuries, and obviously just ill-timed hitting. But, I'm just going to be real. To me, I'm less mad at the team and more upset with the MLB because it is legitimately insane that we had to wait 5 days from the end of the regular season to the beginning of our postseason run to play baseball. A momentum-based sport where momentum and consistency is everything. And these other teams like Philadelphia and Arizona get a chance to keep that momentum going. And they're playing tonight. Meanwhile, the Dodgers and the Braves are not. And to be honest, I think Rob Manfred, I just, talked about earlier how the ALCS played at 4 p.m. today. It feels like October is they squeeze it in. They don't allow it to be special because they're squeezing in all these games in such a short amount of time that it doesn't feel like it leaves an impact. Like when it's like the NFL playoff season, everyone's sitting around talking about like all these playoff games, all the narratives. In baseball, so many playoff games happen in such a short amount of time. It just feels like no one really cares, about the postseason.
I mean, if you start not caring about the postseason, then what's the point of caring at all for your league? Because the postseason should be the peak point of any attention. That's where the NFL gets the most attention is the postseason, is the playoffs. College football as well. And college football understand that so much they're expanding the playoffs because they know how playoff games attract so much viewership and so much, all the money that comes into this. But I think the problem with Major League Baseball playoffs is not. I think then if you're really gonna complain about momentum, then you should be able to choose then your opponent. If the Braves are the number one team, then they should pick between the Phillies or the Phillies or
or the Diamondbacks.
the Diamondbacks. Or okay, you have to pick your team. Since a lot of people are complaining about seeding because the MLB once you're set number one, number two, number three, then you don't change. Then you should be able to have an advantage because in baseball, home field advantage is not as big as football, for example. Home field advantage in football is big. I mean, sorry, Tennessee Titans, not you. Just be honest, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Nashville is unfortunately one of those series where a lot of visiting fans tend to overpower the home fans, especially what the rest of the season will likely look like for the Titans. But you're correct. Nashville is not one of the best home field advantages.
Yeah, but but what a great run by the Texas Rangers. I really felt they were the team this year. They went aggressive in the offseason. They were aggressive in the trade deadline. They were aggressive. They won all in on this season, and their dividends are coming in. They're rolling through the postseason. I mean, they're, as you said, 2-0 against the Astros, which has been a dynasty, at least in the American League. Of course, they did not make through all 7 straight World Series, and when they got to the World Series, they didn't win at all. But when you make to 7 straight American League Championship Series, you make it a dynasty at least to to your league. But then the Texas Rangers are showing they're probably the teams that deserve the most to be in the World Series.
Right, and it's kind of weird because the Astros, it feels like when they've played like the Yankees, for example, they've been sweeping them, but like they're getting done to them by the Rangers what they've been doing to a lot of these other teams, and it's kind of weird to see that it feels like it's a changing of the guard for Texas.
No, and Houston, I think there's a weird problem when they face big runs. Houston always shines. When they face the Yankees and the Dodgers, Houston always shines. But when they face Washington Nationals, Tampa Bay Rays, and now the Texas Rangers, they shrink.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. It's interesting because now they got to go to Arlington for games 3 and 4. I think they got to win both of those games, get it back. And of course, they had a good fight earlier this evening to try to get back in this game. But man, I don't know. I think that best are down 3-1, heading to a game 5. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be the best outcome here for the Houston Astros. And, a lot of people will rejoice in that fact. And I think, honestly, right now, that, the Phillies just added on another run, by the way. It's 5-0. It seems like right now the most likely outcome here is going to be Rangers and Phillies to the World Series. I think the Phillies are just a better team than Arizona.
And I called that World Series. Remember what I said? I think Dallas and Philadelphia are going to make it. And boy, oh boy, and I said in the last episode, what a rivalry.
It is going to be such a toxic discourse. I mean, the discourse is going to be so funny. I hope the Cowboys and the Eagles are playing at around the same time, too.
Yeah, speaking of Cowboys, they're in a good position right now on the field. They're 1st and 10 on their 17-yard line.
It's like 8 seconds left. They probably will settle for a field goal, it looks like.
No, Dak's going to throw it. Oh, probably going to set for a field goal. Yeah, now you show 8. Oh, no. And you're right. On November 5th, the Philadelphia Eagles face the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, I'm assuming that's a primetime game.
Actually, it's going to be a 7:25 game.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be incredible. So Dallas versus Philadelphia in all kinds of numbers. So 3 seconds here for the Cowboys. They'll definitely settle for a field goal to try to take a 10-7 lead into the break. So far, Cowboys playing a lot better on defense against the Chargers than they did last week against the 49ers. But so yeah, it looks like we both agree on Rangers and Phillies. I don't know if there's anything else on the
yeah, but unfortunately, when the Eagles and Cowboys played, we already gonna have a new MLB champion because uh, November 4th is the date for Game 7.
Oh yeah, that would make sense. Imagine if they play Game 7 and then the very next day is
Yeah,
Dallas
but
Philly.
that could happen because if there's a rain, range delay or like rain postpone, and something's happened on the field with the officials.
Huh. I wonder if you're ahead of me, right? Where are you at right now in the game?
I am at 3 seconds, and the
Yeah.
official's gonna say something.
Yeah, well, I just saw the kick. It's good. I think we're going into halftime now. So I think actually I'm ahead of you.
Yeah,
Just rare, it feels like. Because I have it in the dual YouTube TV multi-view. Because I have the Cowboys Chargers on the right, and I have Arizona and Philly on the left.
yeah, I have on my ESPN Plus, so probably I guess my streaming is delayed compared to yours. Shout out to Eleni Barboza here in Americana. So big special shout out to Eleni Barboza. I
Hello,
hope she
Elaine.
understands.
Thank you for
Yeah, I
watching.
hope she understands a little bit. She's trying to learn English. So
Absolutely. I feel the same way when I try to learn Portuguese, right? Yeah.
not easy.
Anyway, do we want to go NFL next or college? I think let's go NFL since
Let's go NFL.
since we're already thinking about it. Of course, Cowboys lead Chargers at the half 10-7. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting second half here in LA. What do you think is going to happen here? Because it's much lower scoring than I thought, and these teams do have a propensity to choke in the second half, but someone has to win, right? Someone has to win this game.
If there's some optimism for the home fans, the Chargers have been performing better in the second half compared to the first half, especially when Kellen Moore is able to adjust the offense. So, but the Cowboys at the same time, I think their defense, if they can still hold the way they did in the first, can get a W. There's pretty much an open game. I think it's gonna wire.
I would agree. It's going to be deep, and I just have to see if it's going to come down to coaching between McCarthy and Staley. And these two coaches are known for sometimes making bonehead decisions.
Yeah, but Kellen Moore is not gonna let Stanley screw up this game because he definitely wants to take revenge on his former team.
I could definitely see that. I definitely I feel like I lean Dallas here. I think defensively they're playing a lot better, and honestly, it feels like Austin Eckler has been held in check. He only has 14 yards rushing at the half. He does have 2 catches for 33 yards, but I mean that's only 47 all-purpose yards. They got into a fight before the game. It feels like the Cowboys here are playing with much more of an edge. And plus, honestly, on the Cowboys side, yes, Tony Pollard's only rushing for 20 yards, but Dak Prescott, that, you don't really think of him as much of a runner, but he had a great 18-yard touchdown run in the first quarter, and CD Lamb is having a great game so far, 5 receptions for 84 yards. I think Dallas is going to pull this out. I think it'll be by a score.
Yeah, then if they win, and they're gonna be 4-2. So it will be an interesting fight division, especially how the NFC East right now is open to everybody thought after what happened in New York.
Absolutely. And, as you alluded to, there are no more undefeated teams in the NFL, surprisingly. The Eagles and the 49ers were the only two left heading into yesterday, and they both suffered upsets. The 49ers losing to P.J. Walker and the Cleveland Browns. Meanwhile, the Eagles losing to Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. These are, to me, very surprising losses. Maybe not as much for the Eagles because I think the Eagles have been teetering all year, but the Niners were shocking. Because up until yesterday,
but the Niners did not have Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. So when you don't have two of your best weapons in offense, then I get on the road. But it came down to a field goal. On the road. It's not it's as good of a loss as any. Of course, a loss is a loss, no matter if you lose 41-0 or 19-17, like the 49ers. But I'll say this, though. I don't think it changed anything. The 49ers are the front runner in the NFC. But congratulations to, I think, the Browns defense. If they keep performing like that, they could carry the Browns, especially if Deshaun Watson come back to wild card spot
I
or
mean,
even the
the Browns
division.
at home have been amazing all year. Like, um, week one against the Bengals held them to 3 points. They held my Titans under 100 yards of offense, and now yesterday, Brock Purdy 12 of 27 for 125. I mean, Brock Purdy looked like the best thing since sliced bread last week against Dallas, but the dog pound has just been swallowing people whole all year long. And if they can win some games on the road, I think that's the key for Cleveland. They have to find a way to win on the road. And their next two games at Indianapolis, at Seattle, can they split those? Can they get some wins on the road? If they can, Cleveland has a chance. And they supposedly are going to get Deshaun Watson back this week. I think you might be right. They kind of remind me of another Orange team where they're winning games in a way that you wouldn't expect. So, we'll see. But hey, and shout out PJ Walker though, because I remember watching him in the XFL. So it's good to see him getting a chance in the NFL and actually running with it and making the most of it. So, good for him and good for the Cleveland Browns and for the Jets. Man, I will always wonder what this team would look like with Aaron Rodgers. Because
and what I think, first of all, Robert Saleh definitely is going to come back next year, because with your statement say, oh, what if Aaron Rodgers was available, and being 3-3 without him definitely makes Robert Saleh come back to another year to have Aaron Rodgers available, and then the expectation is going to go higher because. Yeah, Zach Wilson been performing decent. I think he's been mature more. I think maybe Aaron Rodgers, is helping the Jets somehow. Maybe mentoring Zach Wilson. Maybe without Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson wouldn't be that good.
I mean, maybe, I think his presence has helped him a ton. But, I mean, this is not Zach Wilson's doing. Once again, the Jets' defense is unreal. And the Jets, you have to think about, for the first 6 weeks, they've played a ton of good teams. And the fact they're 3-3 for that stretch is pretty impressive. And it's not like they're getting blown out in these games. Like, every single game's either been it's been close.
I mean, they played the division leader, the division leader in the AFC West, NFC West. Then they played the AFC East one of the top teams, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they didn't play garbage teams. They played really good teams.
Outside of the Patriots is the lone one, and they lost. Yeah. They lose that game. But as I said, the Jets are in an interesting spot now. Obviously, without Aaron Rodgers, they're not a Super Bowl contender, but they're proving that roster was constructed very, very well. So I'm curious what they do for the quarterback situation.
And I just saw an article by ESPN that literally proves what I just said. That Robert Saleh calls Aaron Rodgers present. He's superpowered. That's what I literally just pointed out.
Absolutely. It's that ayahuasca juice. I mean, it helps. But also, too, Jalen Hurts, 3 interceptions. Not his greatest performance. And some of those throws late were just awful for Hurts. And I know it's one game, so I don't want to overreact to one game. And he looked amazing in the last postseason, and he wasn't the reason why they lost the Super Bowl. But you can't have too many of those performances, or otherwise you're not going to win it this year. So we'll see if that becomes a trend.
I wouldn't take, like I said with the 49ers, I wouldn't take any big point by the Eagles. I don't think they found their identity yet. I think they're team that has been built as they play. Of course, Nick Sirianni is a great head coach, and I think he's lost a coordinator, and they are definitely going to win the NFC East. But maybe this loss will help this team improve and find problems than they weren't seen before. I still think if nothing crazy happens, I think the Eagles and the 49ers are going to see each other again in an NFC championship.
I still think that's the most likely outcome. I would definitely agree with that. Oh boy. Let's talk about the Titans. I guess not for that long because I mean,
I guess that's why you're yawning.
Yeah, that was I mean, I guess I was technically already up anyway for a 9:30 kick in London, and I didn't know if I really should have expected anything else. This feels like the end of the road for Ryan Tannehill. I mean, it sucks, but it is what it is, man. He's not going to be playing for several weeks at this point, and by the time he's able to come back, I think we're going to be like 2-8, 2-9. And at that point, why even bring him back? Malik Willis in his short fourth quarter stint looked lost. He looked very lost out there, and he just hasn't developed. And I think we're gonna have to see Will Levis, and that terrifies me because I saw him in college and I thought he sucked. And I'm gonna be real; I don't have high expectations for him, considering that our receiving core isn't very good, our offensive line isn't very good. Now Derrick Henry looked good yesterday, but he's Derrick Henry, and almost partially, I kind of want us to trade him. I want him to be able to go play for a Super Bowl contender and to go and still compete because we aren't going to compete here. The defense is still playing okay. Like I thought they played okay against the Ravens, but at the same time, they really weren't exactly that impressive to me against the pass when they were letting Odell Beckham Jr. Run deep on him. Like, come on, like this isn't 2013 OBJ. So it's time. You're still 2-4. There's still a large chance to get to tank and really get up high in the draft rankings. As I said, it's clear that this season's about to go down the drain for the Tennessee Titans. And I really don't know if we win more than one or two more games the rest of the year.
I know you're very pessimistic about the Tennessee Titans. And that has been kind of your motto since the Titans lost in the AFC divisional round in 2021. But we have to praise also Lamar Jackson. He had a terrific first half. I think he's played his best game. And again, the AFC North is going to be a really big battle. I think that division is going to come down to week 17.
Yes, because the Bengals are definitely not done. The Browns have a really good defense. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson. Steelers are the ones that I don't think are going to be competitive in it. But yeah, that's going to be a fun division. But I don't know if any of those three teams are Super Bowl contenders. So is the thing. Because I still think the Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC.
I mean, speaking of the Chiefs, I know the game was on Thursday, but I mean, it was more or less a Chiefs win and more another terrible performance by the Denver Broncos. I mean, if you think that the Titans are a mess and they're done, imagine the Broncos. I mean, another hyped season and another disappointment.
Hey, do you want to hear what $230 million bought the Denver Broncos this week?
What did they bought?
13 of 22, 95 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. 95 yards. I mean, how do you spend $230 million on a quarterback and not even get 100 yards?
Yeah, I guess Denver has a problem, and they're not going to go running coach after coach to make this Russell Wilson trade work. At some point, Sean Payton is going to go to the front office and be like, is it worth to keep him here? Let's maybe find somewhere he can be traded or he be benched. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Shout out Claudio Miro Pedro in the beautiful city of Limeira, Sao Paulo.
And also, let's see, who is the Broncos backup right now? Jared Stidham. Would he play better right now? He might play better right now. I mean, honestly, and shout out to the defense of the Broncos because they honestly played pretty well in this game. But man, I think that's just more of that game being a Thursday night game than anything else. But it just sucks. Also, who else also did not play well? And also shout outs to Luis Gustavo Forgello.
Oh, he said he just made it here. He said, "I hope you guys talk well about my New York Jets." Of course we did. Lógico que a gente
Yes.
falou. We talked very well. Like I'm going to talk Portuguese so he can understand. A gente falou que se sem o Aaron Rodgers tá bem, imagina com. Like we said, translating, I said that without Aaron Rodgers is okay to good. Imagine with him. That's our like when we talk about the Jets, our discourse.
Absolutely. Who did not look good, though, is the Buffalo Bills. They did win on Sunday Night Football, but man, it came down to the final play against a New York Giants team that were literally playing dudes off their couch at offensive line. Man, I don't know. This is the thing with the Bills. They can look like world beaters the most of the time. But I do not trust their consistency because I went on record this year and said that Josh Allen will never win a Super Bowl. And I'm sticking to that because I just don't trust their consistency.
Do you think Josh Allen will be like Dan Marino, like a lot of flashy but no titles?
Yes. And I unfortunately, I'm more like honestly another Buffalo legend than Jim Kelly. That lots of stats, lots of great highlights, but no rings. And I think Buffalo, once again, is going to have no rings. I mean, they should have handled business against the New York Giants last night. I mean, that was ridiculous. Ridiculous that it took them until the fourth quarter for them to score at home. You know, it's the same thing that happened against Cincinnati. Like, they couldn't do anything on offense at home against Cincinnati back last year in the divisional round, you know? So the Buffalo Bills, they just don't impress me.
Yes, I guess losing an offensive coordinator really impacts your franchise. And at some point, you got to ask, is Sean McDermott the right head coach with the defensive mentality with such a inconsistent offense?
Yeah, and because you just know in the back of your mind they're gonna fail when the time comes. And no matter how many games win the regular season, you know when we get to January, they're gonna fail. That's just the way it feels like with the Buffalo Bills to me. And poor Giants, I just feel bad for them. They're just so injured. But shout out Jalen Hyatt though. He lit it up there towards the end of the game. So it's good to see him get some serious targets down the stretch. So yeah. So that's kind of the NFL recap. Normally we would pick NFL games, but we're going to save that for our next episode.
Yeah, the special one.
100.
Yeah, the 101, which at the end of the episode, I'll tell where I will be. It will be in a really interesting place. It'll be live from a stadium.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's move over to some college football. And before we get into any games, reports have surfaced that the SEC still cannot decide on an 8 or 9 game schedule. Apparently, Nick Saban is still advocating for just an 8-game schedule because Alabama apparently cannot handle playing 9-game schedules, apparently. And also the rumor is the SEC wants to make sure to get more money for an additional SEC game, which I guess that makes more sense. But still, from a competitive standpoint, for making sure that teams play each other on a regular basis, we can only do that with a 9-game schedule. And playing 8 games with 16 teams means there's going to be some teams that we just never see.
Yeah, I mean, there should be a standard with like so much connectivity with those conferences, and people are already saying there's going to be mega conference, but let's keep it as it is. There's have to be a standard. There's no way some conferences will play 9 games in conference and other conferences will play 8 games, because if you want to make like a league as a standard, like if college football now is going to be all about the the national championship with the expanded playoffs.
Yeah, like if we're gonna have effectively like an AFC and NFC with the SEC and Big Ten, I mean, we gotta have a standard. The Big Ten plays 9 games. It's time for the SEC to be big boys and play 9 games too. There's no excuse because I mean, I already argue the SEC is not the best conference this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the SEC right now, outside of Georgia, which I don't think they face any big challenger so far. They're the number one team by default. I don't think they earned it the first being number one ranked is because they stay there and they haven't lost a game. But I mean, but people argue, oh, but Michigan and Ohio State also have not played any major games. But now Ohio State's gonna face a top 10 team. So
I mean, Ohio State won at Notre Dame. I mean, that's a big one for them. Now, Michigan, yes, Michigan has literally not played anybody. But Michigan's best win is Rutgers. So, Georgia still has played a better schedule than Michigan. Although Georgia's not the same dominant team they were last year. And with today's news, I'm very interested to see Georgia's next couple of games because Georgia's next 4 opponents are all ranked. Our ranked are almost ranked. Florida is just right outside the top 25 next week. They've got Mizzou, who's ranked. They've got Ole Miss, who's ranked. And they have to come to the stadium behind us in our avatars to another ranked team in the Tennessee Volunteers. So they got 4 straight games against ranked teams. All of a sudden, that trash schedule we talked about in the regular season doesn't seem so trash anymore. So, I think a lot of the teams in their schedule have overperformed.
Yeah, and also Georgia lost a really key player with injury.
Yeah, Brock Bowers, which is huge. I mean, Brock Bowers, I would argue, has been the best player in college football this year. A game changer.
6 weeks. 6 weeks, he'll be out.
Yeah, so he's going to be out for all those games. So we're going to find out who will Carson Beck turn to in key moments because he's been turning to Brock Bowers, but isn't going to have Brock Bowers anymore. And honestly, Georgia's running game to me hasn't been great. I mean, it's been good. You have to remind ourselves, Georgia has a top 5 offense. Like that. Like they have a very good offense. And I still think they're going to be really good. But there's no denying this is going to hurt them somewhat. And honestly, without Brock Bowers, I think they would have lost to Auburn a few weeks ago because he bailed him out in that game time and time again. And Georgia low-key kind of has a little bit of a fumbling issue, a bit of a turnover issue. They fumbled the ball 3 times against Vanderbilt. They've had some turnovers this year. And if you keep on turning over the ball over, you're playing with fire. And we'll see if Georgia decides to play in the fire at some point, to say at least.
Well, one thing I have to say about Georgia Vanderbilt game is just weird seeing a game being played while the stadium is under construction.
The SEC should not be letting that happen. The SEC should have forced Vanderbilt to move their game somewhere else. Like, that is just an embarrassment to the league, that we are having major college football played in a construction zone.
Like, literally, you have a really good stadium, 4 miles, 3 miles, like down in downtown Nashville. I mean, just go play there, especially those big games. I mean, I understand like Vanderbilt playing like an out of conference game, little game, but when they have played Georgia and Tennessee or somewhere big, I mean, it looked.
Well, if you're Vandy, you wouldn't want to do that because why would you want 70,000 Georgia fans to come to Nashville or 70,000 Tennessee fans to show up? Okay, let's be real. If you look at the home crowd yesterday, that was at 90% Georgia in Nashville. So yeah, I mean it's just embarrassing. If you're a Vandy.
Yeah. It's just I feel like they should have found a solution. I just say that it just looked sloppy.
Yeah. What else was sloppy was Tennessee's offense against Texas A&M, but sometimes sloppy still is good enough because the Vols got it done. 2013 defensive battle in front of the checkerboards against Texas A&M. I never thought we would win a game like this under Josh Heupel, just to be honest. I mean, this is literally the first time Josh Heupel, as a head coach, has won a game where he has scored under 30 points. And it's just insane that this team has quite literally become the exact opposite of last year's team. Where last year's team would run up and down the field, score 40, 50 points a game. This year, we're winning with defense and special teams and a running game. And,
I guess,
go ahead.
no, and I'll tell one thing. Maybe this has an effect because of last year's still debacle in Colombia. Like Hypo understood that without generational talent like Hendon Hooker, he couldn't rely his team solely on offense. So what he probably in the offseason focused his attention was in defense, and maybe that's why he doesn't have that explosive offense, but his defense has been carried his team.
Well, I think it's clear that the offensive talent is taking a step back. As much as I really wanted Joe Milton to be really good, it's just not happening. I mean, we can't even throw the ball down the field. And that was what I was excited for. I wanted to see Joe Milton throw 60, 70, 80-yard bombs down the field. And I still don't think it's completely his fault. Like, I think our receivers have been very disappointing. Now, it doesn't help that Brew McCoy got hurt, and that's a huge blow. But still, Squirrel White, I expected him to be another elite slot receiver for Tennessee. Hasn't really been there. I mean, he's had some really good games. Like South Carolina, he was great. This past week, though, he had 3 catches. He wasn't there. He had one really, really great third down catch, but outside of that, was kind of just disappeared. Deontay Ford, he's been injured some, but otherwise has just not looked good. Raymond Keaton had a touchdown once again, his second dropped touchdown of the season. Remember back that first game against Virginia? It feels like if Raymond Keaton catches that ball against Virginia, maybe this offense looks different. I think mentally, since we dropped that bomb in game 1, it just has not looked like we've been able to recapture any of the magic from last year. Offensively, we're literally our lead receiver on Saturday rather, was Chaz Nimrod, which I definitely wouldn't have guessed preseason. On the one hand, obviously it's frustrating because, like, I'll be honest, I love watching high scoring offenses. The last 2 years before, I was watching Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman for up 50 points a game was incredible. Was so much fun. But you're right, Gus. It wasn't sustainable. Like, as we saw in South Carolina, it wasn't sustainable. Like, we had to learn how to win multiple ways. We had to learn how to win with defense and how to run the ball and on a consistent basis. And, the teams of the past few years could run the ball. But this team definitely is a run-first team. And it's kind of interesting how the new school has fused with the old school. And, the Vols, I think, can still win several of these games remaining like this because this defense is really good. I mean, some of the turnarounds this year on defense have been incredible. Kamal Haddon. You realize he's only given up like 30% of his passes this year? Like, he had like an 85.5 PFF rating this week, and another interception because he had the pick six against South Carolina and the game-sealing interception this past week. Look, I have been hard on Kamal Haddon over the past year, but he has turned it around, and salute to him because we have needed him to play huge the past couple of weeks. And then I'll say this as well. James Pierce, this might be a bold statement. On Saturday, we honored Eric Berry. all-time great defensive back for Tennessee. I got to see him play back in the day. This might be the boldest statement. James Pierce is at the bare minimum the best defensive pass rusher we've had since Derek Barnett in 2016. He has a chance. He's only a sophomore right now. He has a chance to be the best defensive player overall we've had since Eric Berry. James Pierce was the reason why we won that game on Saturday. Him and D. Williams. James Pierce, what he did as a defensive pass rusher, getting to Max Johnson, he altered the game on multiple occasions in the second half. And it was just gorgeous to watch. And he was Defensive Player of the Week this week. To me, he's easily the best player on this football team. If he keeps on developing on the rate he's developing, he might be a top 10 pick at the end of next year. James Pierce is amazing. And I can't believe that the best player on our team is a defensive end, but he's by far the best player. And thankfully, at that position, you can alter football games.
Yeah, I think that it was a gutsy performance. Definitely. It reminded me of that 2015 Georgia game where Tennessee had a gutsy performance. And it was, at that point, important for the
Jones.
And Jones.
That was, of course, that was kind of more of a shootout than anything. But this to be a defensive performance, and it was crazy because, like, we forget that football is a free-face sport. We don't talk a lot about special teams, but special teams also won this game. Like that sequence in the third quarter where Jackson Ross had an amazing punt, and D. Williams caught it at the 1-yard line. The defense forced him to go 3 and out, setting up D. Williams for that short field for the punt return. Special teams and defense worked perfectly there to pull that off. It was just a beautiful, beautiful execution. And it shows that Josh Heupel is not a one-trick pony. And Tim Banks, it's crazy. We went from wanting him fired at the end of last year for many people. Now it's like, yeah, I see the vision now. I see what you were trying to build. And I am proud of this staff for being able to adjust. Because I think, I know statistically we're still like the fastest team in terms of like snaps, but it doesn't really feel like it. It feels like we've modified our style a bit to help out the defense because I think Heupel knows we can't air it out like we used to with Hendon because we don't have Hendon anymore. We got Joe Milton, and Joe Milton does things a little bit differently. Clearly, some of the decision-making for Joe Milton is horrifically bad. Like that 4th down early on, what is he doing? Like, you got to try to reach out for the first down, man. You can't run out of bounds. It's the same thing you did against Ole Miss. Or that interception in the 4th quarter, like throwing it into double coverage. It's just some boneheaded decisions. Of course, you still have some overthrows and whatnot. But, again, you can see why he's playing. The athleticism. He has some great runs. I want to see more design runs for Joe Milton, personally. If we're going to struggle throwing the ball, then at least use him as an athlete. Because I think that will get the most utility out of him as a player. Because I still think Joe Milton can help this team win football games. It's just not going to be like Hendon Hooker, though. It's going to be completely different. And that's totally fine because there is more than one way to win a football game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And maybe this team is learning ways they weren't providing last year. And I'm optimistic about next Saturday's game. Oh, what happened in the world of sport?
It's a Nets fan gets a souvenir from Ben Simmons. I don't know what that's all about. Also, just a little bit of an update real quick. The Diamondbacks making this a little bit interesting. It's 5-3 now in the bottom of the 7th. So the Diamondbacks have scored 3 times. So they're trying to make things interesting in Philadelphia. And it's still 10-7. In LA, 5 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. So they are struggling to score in Los Angeles.
My TV here shows Philadelphia at bat.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I have Philadelphia. Yes, at bat as well. Bottom of the 7th.
But are you optimistic about the third Saturday in October?
I think that we got a chance. I mean, and I guess we can get to Texas A&M here in a second, because I guess if we want to talk about Alabama, because we're going to go into a full preview on Thursday, but for Alabama, they didn't really look great on Saturday either. I mean, they didn't score a single point in the second half against Arkansas. Now, I thought in the first half, especially offensively, that was one of the best performances they've had all year in the first half. Jalen Milroe threw the ball downfield very effectively. And showed why he's starting. Like, he has a great arm. He reminds me a lot of Joe Milton. I think Milroe and Milton are very similar, where they can make big throws downfield, but they're not consistent. So I think they have a lot of similarities to one another. The problem for Alabama on offense is twofold. One, they're giving up a ton of sacks. They're one of the worst teams in the country in terms of giving up sacks, which is just crazy for Alabama. For all the talent that they have, they're giving up like 5 sacks a game. It's crazy. And they did so again in this game. 2, and they can't run the ball. Like, literally, against Texas A&M, they ran the ball for 20 yards last week. Meanwhile, we ran for over 200. We're clearly a far better running team than Alabama is. But I do think they are throwing the ball a lot better than we are as well. So Bama's more passing, we're more rushing. But defensively, I do think they are they improved from last year. So all I'm going to say right now on the third Saturday of October is don't expect another 52-45 game, a 49 game. Bryce Young and Hendon Hooker are not walking through that door on Saturday. I feel like that Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker might go down as like the greatest duel in this rivalry ever. And might stay that way for a very long time.
Yeah, definitely. You won't combine for more than 100 points on Saturday. No. Probably 50 at best.
Yeah, I think it's going to be half the points, but I still think it's going to be a lower scoring game, tighter scoring game. But yeah, it's just kind of how I feel about Bama going into this game. But hey, got to give them credit. They're 6-1. We only have one loss. Outside of last year's one of the bigger third Saturdays in October's in my lifetime. So it's going to be an interesting game, but we'll definitely get more into that game later this week. I want to talk about the other team though in this game, Texas A&M. This was their 8th straight road loss, dating back to 2021. Reminder: Jimbo Fisher's being paid $10 million a year, and they haven't won a road game in 2 years. You start that beef with Nick Saban at the end of last year during the offseason. And since that beef, Jimbo has not won a single road game. Since that beef. They bring in Byron Petrino this offseason to fix the offense. And to be fair, they lost their quarterback, but still, A&M had every chance to win this football game, and they just couldn't do it. For all the talent, supposedly, according to 24/7, Texas A&M has the 4th most talented roster in college football, and they have 3 losses right now. Do you think Jimbo needs to go? Because I think he needs to go.
I mean, he will argue that he got a lot of good recruits. He was the number 1 class, and he's developed those recruits. But when does patience run out in College Station? Because after 2020, where they came really close to being in the college football playoff, and I think they deserve to be in the college football playoff, because I said time and time again back then, and I guess you're tired of hearing Nick, and Ohio State was a fraud and they didn't deserve to be there, so Texas A&M deserved to be there. And after that year, it kind of shrinked, and bringing the beef with Nick Saban, I thought was going to help Jimbo, but it didn't. It kind of distract him maybe.
I think it clearly did. And it's just the thing is with Jimbo, he is operating in a previous era in terms of his offensive style. Like his style, it's just not fun to watch Texas A&M. They have the ability. Josh Pate says this, right? They're a Ferrari at Texas A&M, and they choose not to drive the Ferrari. Why is that? Like, if you take a Ferrari, right, you're going to drive that thing at 200 miles an hour. But like it's just driving a Ferrari at 30. That's what Texas A&M is like. Texas A&M with the right coach would be a top 10, top 15 team year in, year out. But they're just not utilizing their talent properly. And it's really, I think, desperation time for A&M because Texas and OU are coming next year. And right now, if Texas and OU were in the SEC, there's a chance they would be the two best teams in the SEC today if they walked in right now. And A&M would become, frankly, kind of irrelevant. I think A&M, they got to do something to counter the incoming Longhorn and Sooner invasion because they're going to lose their edge of recruiting because of that over those programs. And I think Jimbo Fisher is not the guy that's going to be able to get you through that. You're going to need someone younger, someone fresher, someone to bring back Texas A&M. Because right now, when people think of Texas A&M football, it's like going to Golden Corral. It's an old, stale experience. And watching Texas A&M football is an old, stale experience. Texas A&M should not be an old, stale experience. And if they keep it being an old, stale experience, then that number one recruiting class last year will be a fluke.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's so disappointing because from all that noise that Nick Saban made about Texas A&M buying players, imagine what those recruits are feeling, wasting their talent somewhere stale, as you point out.
Right. So, A&M, I think, when you look at the rest of their schedule, I'll be curious to see if they struggle for a bowl game.
I mean, if they did not make the bowl game again, then Jimbo Fisher got to go.
Oh, easy. Now, when I look at their schedule right now, because they're, I think they're what? They're either, I think they're 4-3, if I'm correct. They're 1, 2, 3. They're 4-2, 4-3 right now. So they got South Carolina here in 2 weeks. I think they can win that. At Ole Miss, I think that's a loss. Miss State, that's a win. So okay, I think they'll get to at least 7-5. They could drop an extra game and go 6-6. It would have to be a complete disaster for them. I mean, they would have to lose every other SEC game to miss a bowl game. So
yeah,
if that happens, it's a disaster.
Yeah, I guess this year they did not lose to any like small school like University of New Mexico and Louisiana Monroe because last year
Abilene Christian, so that's a 5th win.
Yeah, so they're gonna get you 6 wins. They're gonna get you a bowl game. I think.
And for all the hype of a number one team, we shouldn't be talking about are they going to make a bowl game?
Yeah, like last year. Like if you remember, last year they were ranked in the top 10 to start this season.
Yeah, it's tough times in Aggie land, for sure. So I kind of feel bad for them, to be honest. In terms of just other SEC schools, real quick, Sam Pittman at Arkansas, I think he's got to go. I think Arkansas could have beaten Alabama if they were more aggressive throughout that game. They're 2-5. They keep on finding ways to lose. It just seems like Arkansas, and it's different than A&M because I feel like Arkansas has a lot more of a lot more institutional barriers in terms of success because Arkansas is not the most populated state. But at the same time, you've got to get it done eventually. Because, Arkansas was just a top 10 team at the beginning of last year as well. So, and they still have KJ Jefferson. It just feels like they're constantly failing.
Yeah, I was hopeful. I thought Sam Pittman was gonna be like that Cinderella story that coach came out of nowhere and be successful, but no, he is definitely not the coach that I think is gonna get done in Fayetteville.
Yeah. Also, speaking of frauds, how much money does Mark Stoops need to start winning games again? because apparently he needed some more money to beat Georgia. He didn't have enough money to beat Georgia. Now he's getting blown at home by Missouri. How much more money do you need, Mark?
But Missouri's been a good team. I think Missouri has been one of those teams that I think is going to be a surprising bowl team that
Oh yeah.
nobody thought they were going to make it a bowl game, and I think they definitely will.
Keep in mind, Missouri controls their own destiny. They still go to Georgia. They host Tennessee. I mean, can they win one or both of those games? I'm personally concerned about the Missouri game as a Vol fan. We play them right before Georgia. Although that shouldn't even be a trap game at this point. Missouri legitimately is a top 25 team. So Brady Cook, especially on offense, they are really good. So I'm definitely surprised at Missouri.
Their only loss, I mean, was at home, but to LSU by 10, I don't think was a bad loss.
No. I mean, LSU, first one was LSU right now, and I know they already have 2 losses, so I feel like we're kind of ignoring them, but offensively, they're putting up crazy numbers. Not quite 2019 numbers, but like they're putting up big time numbers. But they lost those 2 games early, so they're kind of forgettable at this point, outside of the SEC race. But Jalen Daniels might be a Heisman candidate by the season's end if they keep on going. But for Kentucky, though, Devin Leary is not very good. Once again, they don't know how to offense in Lexington. If we do, however, the Vols, it was announced, the Vols go to Kentucky next week. It'll be once again a night game, which I don't love, but the Vols have been able to win up there several times at night. And be honest, if we go up there, we play really good defense, run the ball well, I think we can get another dub against the Wildcats. So it should be a good game next week in Lexington. But first, you got to get through Alabama. Also, shout out to the team we defeated in the Super Bowl a few weeks ago, the South Carolina Gamecocks. It looks like they lost another Super Bowl, this time to Florida, after having a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl. Maybe I should call them the Atlanta Falcons, because they lost 41-39 to Graham Mertz, Sunbelt Billy, and the Florida Gators. And now the South Carolina Gamecocks are 2-4, and Shane Beamer's whining to the press, blaming everyone but himself. And Gamecocks. Legitimately, though, when you look at their schedule, I think they're really not going bowling.
Yeah, but South Carolina is one of those programs where if somehow Shane Beam got a crazy upset, they'll be fine. I mean, I think he's still gonna keep his job somehow.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think he'll keep his job, but the fans want to replace their coordinators, though, especially their defensive coordinator Clayton White. They want a new DC because I think they have like a bottom 10 defense in the entire country.
Yeah, and looking the rest of their schedule, I don't know how they probably gonna get 1 or 2 wins, because even the Jacksonville State game, I don't know if it'd be that easy of a game.
No, it won't be. They could finish 4-8. Oh, what a play! Tony Pollard. He just ripped off like a 50-yard run on 3rd and 11. And a 10-10 game that just started in the 4th quarter. Huge play for Tony Pollard. So I just saw him going nuts. Well, actually, that was a screenplay, it looked like. Well, yeah, so huge play for the Dallas Cowboys. Anyway, but Carolina, they still go to Missouri at A&M, home against Vandy, Kentucky, and Clemson. Clemson. I feel like this is the least I've thought about Clemson in a football season in like 10 years at least. Like, I haven't watched Clemson since the Florida State game.
Yeah, Clemson is now on a downfall. Like I guess Dabo Swinney can still keep his job because of all the things he did in the past, but at some point, I think I compare Dabo Swinney to Bill Belichick. Like, you got a lot of glories in the past, but right now your team stinks.
Honestly, I think Dabo's going to go down more like a Philip Fulmer in terms of like he had elite players carry him for a couple of years, but now that the elite players are gone, now Clemson goes back to what they were, just a good program, not a great one.
Yeah, that's also good comparison too. Like, and also I know uh, uh, Dabo got into more national championships and got more titles than Philip Fulmer, but that's true. Like, it was a good run, but it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, but obviously Clemson. I mean, that's amazing what they were able to pull off. So there's really no shame in that. But state of South Carolina just irrelevant this year. That Palmetto Bowl is going to be very, very sad to watch because that's had some stakes in the most years in the past 15 years. Not really this year, outside of personal pride in the state of South Carolina. Speaking of bad losses, Friday night, holy cow, the Colorado Buffaloes had a 29-0 halftime lead to Stanford. 1-4 Stanford. The same team that was down to USC 49-7 at the break. And they blew a 29-point lead and lost 46-43 to overtime. So that Alec Alamaner for Stanford had 13 catches, 294 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, while this meltdown was going on, apparently at halftime, Shedeur Sanders was promoting merch on his social media when he was supposed to be leading his team getting focused for the second half. I think this is going to be a telling time for Coach Prime in Colorado on how, not only the rest of this season goes, but how does the program go? Is this truly a team or is it a group of individuals more worried about themselves than playing together?
I think, of course, people got impressed by what Colorado did in the first 2 weeks, but I point time and time again that the opponents they play in the first 2 weeks weren't the greatest. You say, "Oh, TCU, they're the runner-ups of the national championships." Totally different roster. Max Durham left, several players left, and then they played Nebraska, which is a rebuilding program.
Yep. And they were taken to overtime by Colorado State, who's not great. But shout out Colorado State that they won in a Hail Mary against Boise State. And Boise State had a 30-10 lead in that game with 4 minutes left, and they blew it. And that's another team that we don't bring up anymore. Like Clemson, Boise State. When was the last time you thought about Boise State? They used to be like the darling Cinderella year in, year out, especially in the late 2000s, early 2010s. But Boise State now is just another G5 team. I forget they exist.
I like their field.
Yes, they have the blue field, but their team right now, I don't like that. That team right now is not very good. It's just crazy how far Boise State's fallen.
That's true. Oh, they did. And for primetime coach, I think he's gonna do fine. I think he's gonna find his team identity again. He picked up a program that was 1-11 in the year before. So anything Colorado does this year is better than last year.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this year is still a success overall. And you're right. I think we went too far in terms of recalibrating expectations because they very well may only win one more game this year at best. Their rest of their schedule is brutal because the Pac-12 is so good. But honestly, they may not. I don't think they're going to win a single game the rest of the year. I think every team they play is significantly better.
I think they're going to make a bowl game. I think they'll still find 2 wins to be in a bowl game.
Okay, so if you look at the remainder of their games,
I think they can be Wazoo, like Washington State and Arizona.
Yeah, but Washington State, I can see. Now, Arizona just beat Washington State 44-6 and almost just beat USC. Arizona is honestly low-key a very good team. UCLA on the road with off the bye week, maybe they could be competitive there. Oregon State, I think, is really good. I think they'll beat them. At Utah, I don't think they're winning there. Um, I mean, maybe there are 2 wins there, maybe. But man, they really needed that win on Friday, and they just did not get it, unfortunately. Yeah, so the
Yeah,
Colorado story.
because if they won that game, then they would definitely got into a bowl game. But yeah, the Colorado story was very good early college football season story, but now it's just a fun story that happened that we're all going to remember when we rewind this 2023-2024 season. But now that's it. It's done. And I guess I was thought about a little bit about this. Coach Prime in the NFL, no, he's not ready. He needs much more time coaching in college football.
Oh, easy, easy. But I still think they will improve year over year. I do believe that, depending on if he stays there. So we'll see if he's truly committed to being in Colorado. I'm also curious to see what happens when Shador leaves, and he has to play a quarterback that isn't his son. Yeah, because that'll be interesting. Um, I know you brought up Miami. They lost to UNC on a game that really wasn't that close. And touchdown Cowboys. Brandon Cooks. A touchdown pass from Dak Prescott to take the lead 16-10 with 11-19 in the
Yeah,
fourth quarter.
yeah. I watched the Miami UNC game again. Like North Carolina gave so many opportunities to Miami, but they just couldn't capitalize. And Mario Cristobal, I mean, bad decision after bad decision. I don't know how long he's gonna stay down in South Florida.
Well, I mean, there's 2 ways to think about this. I mean, it's kind of like Jimbo Fisher. Mario Cristobal is a um, great recruiter. But as we've seen, his in-game coaching is awful. And Tyler Van Dyke, frankly, is letting them down as a quarterback. And this whole season, frankly, has been a shot in the foot for Miami because they could have been competitive. And now, they're going to lose to at least Florida State. And it feels like that's not their only loss remaining on their schedule.
Yeah, I think definitely it was a tough loss, and Miami now is 0-2 in the ACC. As crazy
Yeah.
as it is,
I mean, this was Saturday night, Clemson at Miami, It feels like whoever loses that game will have just an utter failure of a season.
definitely it's the disappointment bowl.
Absolutely. Yeah. Huge game for the U and for Clemson. Another disappointment, USC. And this is weird because you see 48-20, you would assume that USC's defense failed, but really, honestly, it wasn't really their defense. Caleb Williams threw free interception that led directly to 21 points in the first half for Notre Dame, and that led to the 48-20 loss. Caleb Williams definitely threw away his chance for a back-to-back Heisman on Saturday night. Just a horrifically bad performance for Caleb Williams. And USC clearly they've been to me. This proved that they are not a playoff contender. They were frankly fraudulent. They're losing at least 1 or 2 more games in the regular season. I think they'll lose to Washington or Oregon or maybe both.
Yeah, I think USC definitely not. They're not gonna be in the semifinals in the college football playoffs conversation. I don't see this team being competitive in the major spots because that was the game that they had to win because Notre Dame was going back to back losses and but I mean that's why Notre Dame was favored to this game.
Oh, absolutely. I called Notre Dame winning this game just because I just did not trust USC on the road. They had been teetering for a few weeks, and they had to barely escape Arizona. Only beat Arizona State by 2 scores. You could just tell USC was not playing their best, and they got totally exposed on Saturday night. So I think there's more losses coming, and I know the Oklahoma fans are enjoying what they're seeing right now, being top 5 with Brent Venables, undefeated, just coming off a great win over Texas. Meanwhile, Lincoln Riley and USC just completely falling apart. So, OU fans living on cloud 9. Also living on cloud 9, the Washington Huskies. What a game this was. And I hate that this was the same time as Tennessee, Texas A&M, because I would have watched this from start to finish. But it was a great game to watch in spots, in commercial breaks, 36-33. Another last-second win for Washington over Oregon, second straight year. And Dan Lanning, man, I mean, he's building a very good team out there in Oregon, but he has got to rein it in a bit with some of the gambling. It reminds me of Brandon Staley, and that's not a good thing. Some of the fourth downs they went for, like going for it on fourth down up 4 from your own side with a minute left, is ridiculously stupid. Like, just awful. Like, what is he doing? Stupid, And like, they gave away 3 points at the end of the first half that they could have had. They gave up, I think they gave up like 9 points on 3 field goals they didn't try. And then consequently didn't make it the fourth down. And then gave Michael Penix, who's now your Heisman frontrunner, in my opinion, the field position at the 50-yard line on the last drive. It made no sense.
Yeah, like great win for the Huskies, proving they're legit front runner for college football playoff. They are one of the best teams this year, and they wouldn't. I think only if the committee screws them, there wouldn't be in. This team is better than 2016 team.
It's crazy, we don't really think of Washington as like a football powerhouse, but they would be one of a handful of teams that have made it to the college football playoff twice. Like, how underrated are the Washington Huskies in terms of football?
I think it's because they are almost hidden in the Northwest.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really cool that Washington can actually be this good, And Michael Penix, I think he deserves to be your Heisman winner, or deserves to be a Heisman winner. So we'll see what they can do the rest of the season. I think they both have hard schedules coming up, but they both are very much still in the playoff race. And Bo Nix should still also be in the Heisman race, too. And he might deserve to be the Heisman second place right now. It's kind of, honestly, how I feel about the end of this game is how I felt about Tennessee, Alabama, about this same time last year, kind of crazily. So I'll be curious if Washington can finish the deal, unlike Tennessee last year. Because I would argue that Washington has been the most complete team I've seen all year. They had the best resume I've seen all year. Because I would have made the same argument about Tennessee the same time last year. I would have argued that Penix should be your Heisman winner right now. Like I was arguing the same time last year that Hendon Hooker should be the Heisman winner. This Washington team is starting to remind me a ton of Tennessee. But will the other shoe drop on them like it did for Tennessee last year?
Yeah, that's and definitely if they lose a game, then the committee will definitely put this game harder because the committee definitely won't take Pac-12 as a darling.
Well, think about this. They have a 3-game stretch in November of at USC, home against Utah, at Oregon State. I mean, they're losing at least one of those games, right?
Or if they're good enough, they will survive all those 3 games.
If they survive all 3, if they make it to the Pac-12 title games undefeated, they deserve to be in no matter what, like TCU last year.
I agree. Definitely agree with you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a team that's no longer undefeated is Louisville, which is it's sad to say because I thought there was a chance they could run the table, but man, losing to 1-4 Pitt 38-21, just yikes. And I guess it shouldn't be that surprised because I know our good friend Jason Warwick said Louisville was kind of scraping by most of this season. But yeah, that just an ugly loss on the road on the CW network against Pittsburgh. So, but still a good season though so far. 6-1, it's not bad.
Yeah. He mentioned other results. I mean, the rest of the top five rolled. Michigan, no problem with Indiana. Ohio State, no problem with Purdue. Purdue always gave some trouble, not this year. Florida State rolling through Syracuse, only allowing 3 points.
Yeah.
Penn State humiliating UMass. Nope, I think there was no surprise there. Yeah, the
Well,
rest.
I think one of the funniest ones. Yeah, did you see the end of West Virginia Houston Thursday?
No.
Where it's basically identical to 2016 Tennessee Georgia. So West Virginia went down, scored with like 12 seconds left, scored a touchdown, a miracle touchdown. Houston came back and won on a Hail Mary. Very similar to 2016 Tennessee Georgia. And what makes that result even funnier is that Dana Holgorsen, the coach for Houston, used to be the head coach of West Virginia. So West Virginia fans now are wanting to fire their coach over that result.
Oh, I bet they're mad. Definitely. Another result that caught my attention was Duke staying alive, winning NC State. Is this Duke team, gonna keep being ranked in football?
Yeah, and they're winning without their quarterback right now, and Riley Leonard. They only threw for like 12 yards or something like that in this particular game. Like, I mean, just really, really, they're finding different ways to win without their quarterback. But if they're going to win some of their big games coming up, like they go to Florida State Saturday night, they're going to need Riley Leonard if they're going to win that game. Iowa, they keep on finding ways to win with no offense. They're 6-1. They won 15-6. Their quarterback. Do you want to guess what Iowa's stat line passing wise was at Wisconsin?
I'm opening the box score, and they did not have any touchdowns. At least thrown by DeCon Hill.
Yeah, 6-14, 37 yards. I mean, holy cow. How bad is this Iowa offense? I mean, they're winning games, but man, that Brian Ferentz, he's going to get fired still because, like, they can't score, like, at all. So
I guess a lot of rely on the kicking. The kicker Drew Stevens. He got 2 field goals. He got an extra point. I mean, 7 out of the 15 points from Iowa were from the kicker.
Oh yeah, and their defense is amazing. Now, on the other end, I'm going to have to say this. I think this year one right now for Luke Fickell from his first year over from Cincinnati at Wisconsin is kind of disappointing. Getting blown up by a Washington State team that doesn't look really good right now, and then losing at home to Iowa, it's just bad. Like I think this team should be a lot better than they are, and they're just not where they should be in year one. I think Wisconsin should be disappointed in what they've received so far. But yeah, also shout out to Rutgers. They're 5-2. They came back from 24-6 down. They're 1 win away from eligibility. Oklahoma State got a big win. I mean, Oklahoma State, they were teetering early on. They lost to South Alabama 33-7, but they beat a top 25 Kansas team this week. So a good win for Oklahoma State.
How about James Madison? I mean, they're rolling through Sunbelt, 6-0. I mean, they literally like what? It's like year 2 in the FBS.
Yeah, James Madison, put some respect on their name. They should be ranked.
They should be ranked because there were undefeated Sunbelt teams ranked in the past couple of years. I remember Coastal Carolina being ranked. I remember Appalachian State being ranked. Why not? Why not James Madison?
Honestly, on Thursday night, I might have to watch this game. This game's gonna be kind of electric. James Madison going on the road to Huntington, West Virginia to take on Marshall. That might be one of the better G5 games you see all year. So that could be a game that determines who goes to a New Year's Six bowl, maybe. But,
Yeah.
Also, in terms of disappointment, Maryland losing at home to Illinois. I mean, Maryland last week had Ohio State tied at the half, and we're talking about 5-0 Maryland maybe being a sleeper. Now they go at home, now they get blown out in the second half of that game and then come back and lose by 3 to Illinois. Awful loss. Also, BYU, what happened to the Cougars? 44-11 loss to TCU. Terrible.
Yeah, and TCU, I guess they're gonna make a bowl game, but definitely is one of the. I mean, we knew they're not gonna be as good as last year, but 4-3 as of like last year they were in the national championship.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a fluke. It was a fluke season. Let's just be honest. They can't do that on a consistent basis. That'll be the best year they have in the next 10 years. So, also Texas Tech at home, losing 38-21, losing to a freshman quarterback at Kansas State. Texas Tech is 3-4. I said preseason Texas Tech could be a sleeper Big 12 pick. I look stupid for that pick. Man, they're just not very good this year. So, yeah. But anyway, those are some of the college football takeaways. And of course, again, we'll do picks on Thursday. All right. Some other news real quick. Flag football has been announced as a sport of the 2028 Olympics. Pretty interesting to me. Of course, the Olympics will be in Los Angeles in 28.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think football is a reality in the world. I mean, the NFL is spending games in England and Germany and hopefully in Brazil. And I think flag football is the compromise between a tough, violent sport and the beauty of the game itself for the Olympics.
Yeah. Also, we have a final. I believe the Phillies have won game 1 against the Diamondbacks. They take a 1-0 lead in the NLCS. So Cowboys lead 17-10 over the Chargers, but the Chargers do have the ball in the red zone. So let's see if they can tie it up here with 8 minutes and 41 seconds left in the game.
Yeah. And how about the basketballs?
Yep. Preseason ranked number 9. And of course, the narrative is, does this really matter? Are we just going to get to March and lose in the second or third round again? Or could this be the one? Or can we even say that? Because March is such a crapshoot at this point.
That's why you hope your team gets to March stumbling and finds themselves in the playoffs, because all 4 teams did not have a stellar regular season, but they find a rhythm on the right time. That's what you hope for.
Right. I mean, we should just hope that we play well throughout the year, get to the postseason, and then just let the chips fall where they may. And I think, most of this roster is back outside of Olivier Kamwan, Leos Plavich. Frankly, Plavich wasn't very good at most points. And Olivier, it's going to suck not having him, but then again, he was inconsistent. Zakai is the X factor. We need Zakai to stay healthy, because we saw what happened when we didn't have Zakai. We needed a point guard against FAU. We desperately needed a point guard in that game. So hopefully he can stay healthy. Of course, you got Santi. Hopefully he will have a huge year for us. You still got Josiah Jordan-James, who, great defender, but kind of inconsistent offensively. Hopefully some of these transfers can help maybe spark us a bit on offense. We need to be able to score consistently, because it's one thing to be a great defensive team. And I know under Rick Barnes, we're going to be a great defensive team. But you've got to score. It's basketball. You have to be able to score. And that's what I want to see from this team consistently throughout the season. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that once we get to the playoffs, it's going to be the same old story.
And Kansas being ranked number 1 again, not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to college basketball rankings, like I don't put too much stock in these like football just because it doesn't really matter. Like if you're in the top 25, like just get to the tournament and then just kind of see what happens, right? I mean, you got Duke, and Duke, lost to us. Purdue's free, and well, we know how their season ended last year. Of course, interestingly enough, FAU is number 10. So like people want to act like FAU was an embarrassing loss. I mean, it wasn't. FAU legitimately was a great team, and they were severely underseeded last year. Like that was a worthy Sweet 16 game. Like legitimately, they were like a top 15 team last year. It was just frustrating because it felt like that was a golden opportunity for Tennessee. But Tennessee, I think, and it's interesting too. They're the highest team in the SEC because Arkansas is 14, Texas A&M's 15, Kentucky is 16. If you want to count Texas as 18, but they're still technically not in it this year. Alabama's 24. Those are the only ones. So I think honestly Kentucky is going to be fascinating because I think Calipari is going to have a ton of pressure because Kentucky now has been kind of mid for a while.
Like, I want to understand who writes a lifetime contract for a coach, any sport. Like, why?
Touchdown Chargers, Gerald Everett.
So now it's a tie game.
Well, 17-16, they got to hit the extra point, but it's about to be 7-11 left in the game. So coming down to the wire here in LA.
Yeah, that's what I predicted.
Absolutely. I was looking here. San Diego State 17. Of course, they were runner-ups. Your defending national champion UConn is at 6. How about Marquette at 5? That's an interesting. I'm gonna have to do some more research on this because the season starts here in a couple of weeks. But of course, Gonzaga's at 11. Creighton's a top 10 team in 8. The Big East. I mean, Marquette at 5, UConn 6, Creighton 8. The Big East is loaded this year. So Tennessee, the lone SEC team, up in the top 10. So you love to see it. Also, the Americans going to be, because remember, Florida Atlantic at 10, they're going to be in the American Conference now. And so, Memphis, they're in that conference. UConn, well, UConn's in the Big East. But so there's going to be some interesting teams. Also, I think Missouri's being disrespected, too. They only had 6 votes in the top 25. Mizzou was really good last year. I know they lost to Princeton badly in the tournament, but again, one-off losses in the tournament. I frankly think we should not put as much stock in them as we do, even though that's all people team to care about. In terms of other basketball, next week the NBA starts, and we'll have to do something on that, right? Some sort of preview. But I did want to talk about briefly Victor Wembanyama, of course, the highly touted overall number 1 pick from France. He's been playing some preseason, and he absolutely torched this Miami guy, Thomas Bryant, in his preseason game, just dunked all over him. And he had an excellent stat line. He had 23 points in his debut. And it's just super impressive what he's doing early on. Now, granted, it's preseason. We need to see what he does in the regular game. But still, 10 of 15 against Miami, 8 of 13 against OKC, 23 points against the Heat, 20 points against the Thunder. I don't know how good the Spurs will be overall. I would think they would have to take some time to build back up around him. But clearly, to me at least, just looking at the preseason, Wembanyama is going to be the piece. And I cannot wait to watch him next Wednesday against the Mavericks in a regular season game.
Yeah, he's definitely a very exciting player to watch, and a lot of people are expecting from him. Hopefully, Popovich are able to develop him like he did with Manu Ginobili, and other several international players. Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I trust the Spurs to develop him. So I think they will be contenders soon. So anyway, also just a quick other American notes in racing. Kyle Larson barely edged out Christopher Bell at the line of Vegas. Great finish there at Las Vegas. He goes to the Final Four in Phoenix. He's going to be looking for his second championship in 3 years. Congratulations to Kyle Larson and the 5-team. Deserving year. I mean, it's been inconsistent, but he's won a lot of races, and he deserves to be there. 2 more races in this round. They go to Homestead, Miami this next week, Martinsville next weekend, and then the final race in Phoenix. So 3 races left in NASCAR. Can't believe that the season has already ended, basically. It's almost over. But 3 more races in the 5-team in the championship. While he also is training for the Indy 500 next year. So he's going to try to run both the Indianapolis 500 and the Charlotte 600 in the same day, which many have tried, but no one has completed the full 1,100 miles. So that would be pretty cool. Also in soccer, I'll be honest, I didn't really get to see this match. I don't know if you got to see out of it, Gus, but the USMT, unfortunately, once again, kind of laid an egg on an international stage. You know, Christian Pulisic came out, had a goal in the 27th minute to take a 1-0 lead, but Germany controlled the rest of it. 3 goals the rest of the way, with goals from Gongding, Fulkrug, and Mozilla to take a 3-1 win. And it just, once again, it's another sign that the USMT just nowhere close to being competitive.
Yeah, I think they're developing still. They're trying to find a rhythm. They're not playing at the qualifiers, and they have to improve if they want to have a good World Cup in 3 years.
Oh yeah. So it's development, so I'm not going to really react too much to it, but yeah, I'm becoming more pessimistic on what they're going to be able to do in 26 compared to what I've hoped for years. But you know, it's interesting to see what the expectations will be like in 26, because I've said we need to do at least quarterfinals in 26, but I'm starting to doubt they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, also MLS playoffs begin this week. The regular season has ended. So
no, they have one more week yet. They have decision day on Saturday, October 21st. So there's still one more week of soccer.
Absolutely. And kind of like, what are some of the games that people need to keep an eye out on in terms of like playoffs and, you know, the
one game there's interesting. Nashville and the Rebels, because the Rebels need a tie to get in. And it's weird that DC is eliminated. And like, I'm looking at the standings. DC is eliminated despite being on, I guess, in the play-in. Maybe it's because there will be, I guess because New York and Chicago are playing, and there's going to be like, if Chicago ties, they surpass DC. If New York wins, they surpass DC. So DC is in, but they're going to be out. That's so weird because they already have 34 games.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, they're weird. They're in, but they're eliminated because New York and or like the New York City FC or Chicago Fire are going to pass DC, and they don't play in decision. That's so stupid. That's so freaking stupid by the MLS. Like, why you have
it's a whole point of decision day. Yeah, what's the whole point then? How did DC end up with one more game?
Yeah, how is scheduling? DC ended up playing the 34th game before the decision day, and they are in, but they're gonna be eliminated, and there's nothing they can do.
Also, Charlotte and Inter Miami, they've only played 32. How did that happen?
No, they're gonna play the 30. They're gonna play the 33rd game tomorrow. against Charlotte.
Yeah.
So Charlotte also has 32. So everybody's gonna have 33 games. The only team who already have 34 games are the DC United. And
Wow.
how the hell does that happen? There
It's
gotta be some
incompetent.
criticism. Is incompetence.
I mean, that just devalues. I mean, because okay, how many teams are there? Right, 14. Okay, so there's 29. So I see how it happens because you have an odd number of teams right now. So someone had to be left out at decision day. But like, how do you allow that to happen?
I know. That's why like odd numbers in so weird too. Because again, it's the first time ever like the ninth place is eliminated, but the 13th place is not.
Right. Just absolutely stupid. And it's just too much to follow.
Yeah, I guess
For the
Nashville
casual
is
fan.
already. Yeah, Nashville is in, but they're gonna have to play the second round, I guess, because they won't be able to surpass Columbus. Or
Yeah.
shout out Orlando. I mean, they normally stumble in the regular season. They're in second place. Maybe this will be the year they finally win the MLS.
I mean, newer clubs, Cincinnati and St. Louis on the top. So both divisions pretty cool. And also Atlanta, number 6. So both teams close to me are in.
And you talk about Miami, of course, they were eliminated. Lionel, despite having Lionel Messi by the second half of the season, I mean, they were too bad in the first half for Messi to do anything. Even Messi got injured a couple of weeks ago. There are rumors that Brazilian teams might looking for a loan for Messi because now Messi is going to stay inactive until March when the new season of the MLS comes around. But I don't see
Right.
Messi
I was
going
about to make a
anywhere.
joke and say that the MLS was going to rig the playoffs so Messi could be in it for ratings.
Oh yeah, they will have to. I mean, they will literally have to give points somehow. Like, there's no way Miami is gonna get in. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
anyway,
but
for more soccer fun, let's head down to Brazil because I know there's some people who think that without their help, their club would literally be tanking.
oh yeah, that's Leila Pereira, Palmeiras. I call her Palmeiras Jerry Jones. She is the president, but also she is the own. Like, she's a president, but she's more like a she's not an owner because she didn't bought the club, and she finding out the hard way that she's definitely not the owner because she gave an explosive press conference on Wednesday and she literally vent to the press. She first of all she handpicked the journalists who were in this press conference. That it's itself ridiculous, but she outlined saying that without her and her sponsorship companies, the sponsorship of Crefisa, the bank, and the college fan, Palmeiras would have been fighting for relegation and even relegated because she said that before she came along in 2014 season, Palmeiras uh, supposed to be relegated, but it didn't because forces helped Palmeiras. Yeah, Santos beat Vitoria, and Palmeiras got a salvation in the last week. But I think she's being too narcissist. I mean, of course, she got a lot of criticism this year because she did not make any signings. She lost key players like Danilo and Gustavo Scarpa. Not any major titles, no Libertadores. Look like she's not gonna Palmeiras not gonna win the Brazilian League, Brazilian Cup. They lost to rival Sao Paulo. They got the state championship, but it feels little to such a big, such a rich team as Palmeiras. For Agua Santa, if they got a win, of course, would have been major, but it feels like a consolation prize at some point. And also, they won the Brazilian Super Cup, another consolation trophy. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I think next year she runs for re-election as Palmeiras president. I don't know what that's gonna look like, and probably she is not is not beloved in Palmeiras politics right now.
Yeah, I could have totally imagine why. I don't think her reelection odds look too high right now.
No, definitely not. And it's so funny because for her to get into Palmeiras politics, she used a lot of her money to buy love, to buy the love of the hooligans of Palmeiras, of the council of Palmeiras. But now she's trying to play it tough and literally trying to uh, show that she is the leader, and I don't think that works. If I mean, I think she lost a great opportunity to make Palmeiras into a SAF, which is a private, like have a private owner, like Cruzeiro has with Ronaldo, Vasco have with 777 Partners. I think uh, between 2020 and 2021, when she was a beloved president, winning titles, probably she could have got Palmeiras to be a SAF and she will literally be the owner. But now I think there's going to be some real change next year into Palmeiras front office. And I
I'm
wonder what
just
that
so
happens.
glad SEC teams are not ran like this. At least,
Yeah.
and could you imagine just SEC fan base just getting to vote out people?
Oh, yeah. Imagine if an athletic director of your college is decided by a council, like, but at some point it is, Nick. The boosters are literally the what we call here in Brazil the council. Like the boosters decide who are the AD. Like the
Well,
like you literally the boosters are what here in Brazil we call the council people. Like the conselheiros are the boosters. You know,
right,
yeah, so SEC football and Brazilian soccer are very similar in terms of drama and love.
right. Speaking of drama here, the Cowboys have driven down to the red zone. 2:36 left. Great drive here by the Cowboys as they look to take the lead here late in LA.
Oh, wow. I got to catch the end of the game, so be brief. Corinthians had a debate for president on Sunday. So teams in Brazil have debates for president on Sunday night. And it will look awful. Look awful. Both candidates look awful. And I don't have anything positive for Corinthians next year. I think Corinthians is looking for a down path. Definitely. I don't like any candidates. The one that has the all the support from the current group look lost. He even said that Corinthians only got one world champion, which has two according to FIFA, and even former players got mad at the statement. And yeah, so it's a lot of mess in Corinthians right now.
So, what
And
does a debate look like for the head of an athletic club? Like, what does that
yeah,
look
for
like?
it looked like so it was organized by a TV sports. It's like if for the position of UT president, sports show, the sports show on WATE on Monday on Sunday
Yeah,
morning
right.
ran a debate between candidates, and they ask each other like why Corinthians has a lot of depth, and why Corinthians suck, and why you did this and why you did that.
Could you imagine, like, let's say I'm trying to think of 2020, bringing on like I don't know, like Philip Fulmer and Jeremy Pruitt to do a debate. I'm like, okay, why ask a Jeremy Pruitt a question? Why have you started Jared Garanton in the last
Yeah.
3 years?
Or like even a debate for athletic director, and or I know for university it's hard, but imagine an NFL team like Jerry Jones debating somewhere else to be the owner or president of the Cowboys. That's what we have here in Brazil.
And
When you
speaking
don't
of the
have
Cowboys, they just missed a wide open Tony Pollard. That would have been a go-ahead
oh
touchdown. So now it's fourth down. They're going to have to kick a field goal, and Justin Herbert will have well over 2 minutes to work with. Down 3.
yeah, but there's a lot of drama in sports politics in Brazil. That's for sure.
It's crazy.
Until teams in Brazil turns themselves into true businesses and SAFs and have owner, this will keep going and going and going and going.
Absolutely. And the Cowboys have hit the field goals. 2017 Dallas, 219. Herbert gonna get the ball. Can he engineer at least a game tying drive? Can he do a game winning drive?
Yeah. And last but not least, the Brazil national team, the one I'm wearing right now. Since we are on a FIFA break and we're playing the qualifying for the World Cup, the Brazil play Venezuela on Thursday at home in Cuiabá in the state of Mato Grosso. The fans who pay top dollar, they pay like 400 reais, which is 1/3 of the minimum wage in Brazil. Gotta watch an awful game, and Brazil tied with Venezuela 1-1. And an angry fan threw a popcorn bag at Neymar, and he was not happy about it.
Well, don't tie it home with freaking Venezuela.
Yeah. So now Brazil plays tomorrow Uruguay on the road. I think they can win. I think Uruguay is kind of like Brazil's. They always Uruguay always ended up losing to Brazil, but I am positive about tomorrow. But definitely, the fans did not expect that bad of a performance on Thursday. And definitely on Thursday, I'm going to talk way more Brazilian Championship as I will be live from Allianz Park for episode 100. Right after Palmeiras and Atlético Mineiro game, I'll be there live from the beautiful Allianz Park to record the special 100th episode of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. And I just saw that we also this week we completed 2 years of this podcast. Can you believe that, Nicholas Hill?
Absolutely. I believe today will be 2 years since the
Yeah.
first episode. So absolutely. And it's unbelievable that we've made it 100 episodes. It's just a lot has happened in 2 years, just think about where our teams have gone to, what we have seen in 100 episodes, what we've been able to talk about over 100 episodes, what we've got to talk to over 100 episodes. And, we're going to just talk about that, talk about how American and Brazilian sports have evolved over the past 2 years and where we think things are going to go over the next 100 episodes.
Oh, yeah. So can't wait. It's going to be Thursday night, probably. I will be honest, I don't know what time exactly because I'll probably be 9:30 Eastern time because I'll be depending on the mixed zone and press conference of Palmeiras and Atlético Mineiro. So right after I got to talk to the coach and the players, I will start the pod.
Absolutely, man. It's gonna be a good time. So definitely tune on in because it's a special episode. You only get one episode 100. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think that's it for episode 99. So for Gustavo Tomazeli on Americana Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nick Hill, live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. Tune back on a Thursday for episode 100. This has been episode 99 of the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. Two Americas, or two countries, two Americas, all sports.